Our group is consisting of Parker Brown, Lauren Faber, Stephen Goddard, and Katy Vance, and we're discussing AWS Elastic Beanstalk.
So let's talk about what some user has called a major breakthrough when it comes to cloud platform. And to do this, I'll start with a problem, an example that we may be all painfully familiar with. So let's say there's a group of 4 individuals that just joined information systems, and they are tasked with doing in-text 2. And in this project, they're tasked with creating an awesome website called FOMO, and they're really excited. They want to put to test their knowledge that they've gained throughout the year, and so they start coding. They start designing different elements of the website and get into the code and are really happy with that. However, Dr. Masurvi drops a bomb on them and says that they actually need to supply their own infrastructure to do that. And because of this, FOMO, the actual project and the code thereof, has to get put on the back burner. Instead, the students have to focus on creating the databases and managing them and creating them in such a way that will support their servers, which will need to connect with their routers in order so that the end users can really utilize the system that they're creating. And because of this, the developers and the junior core group start to hit their head against the wall. And for some groups throughout the whole semester, it took around 40 hours. If you were like our group, it might have taken closer to 80 hours throughout the whole semester. Either way, this was a pretty painful experience that no one really wants to duplicate. So let's instead say that this junior core group is able to use Elastic Beanstalk, right? So they have their code, they created the UI, everything, they got it working right, and then they simply get to use Elastic Beanstalk, which essentially, we'll get into this a little bit later, handles all of the infrastructure needs that they may have. And what is this equal to? Their pure happiness. Just like Arthur's face, honestly, this is the best thing for a developer because it removes their need to be a system admin over their application and instead allows them to simply focus on the code behind it.
As already discussed a bit, Elastic Beanstalk is great for many reasons. 3 of those reasons are because it deploys, manages, and scales all of the backend that you need. So for example, let's say with this FOMO project, the students, if they use Elastic Beanstalk, don't even need to worry about deploying the infrastructure themselves because Elastic Beanstalk will take care of that for them, as well as Elastic Beanstalk will manage all of that infrastructure. So the students don't have to have an in-depth knowledge of everything that's going on in the background with the infrastructure, and they don't even have to figure out the connectivity of things. Elastic Beanstalk will take care of it for them. Another benefit with Elastic Beanstalk is that it's going to scale everything for the students. So let's say they put their site live. They're not even going to need to do anything to adjust for different traffic at different times because Elastic Beanstalk will scale that for them. Elastic Beanstalk uses a variety of different platforms and programming languages. It supports a lot of different ones. One of those is being PHP, Java, Node.js, Python, Ruby, .NET, and Docker. Elastic Beanstalk also works with a lot of different servers. So some of those are Apache, Nginx, Passenger, as well as IIS.
A powerful thing about Elastic Beanstalk is that it takes the resources that AWS has and it combines them and lets you use all these different resources without really necessarily knowing it or having to put work towards it. Some of those include auto-scaling, Amazon EC2. So Amazon EC2 is the web server that allows you to basically run up some servers and have that compute capacity, and it will scale that. There's also S3, which is just the database that you can use. There's Elastic Load Balancing, which allows you to distribute the load depending on how heavy or light your server's getting information at that time. There's also the simple notification services. Basically, Elastic Beanstalk takes all these resources that AW has and allows you to use all of them and makes it much more powerful. Some benefits of Elastic Beanstalk like we kind of mentioned, is load balancing, auto-scaling, provisioning, the application health monitoring. But the powerful tool about this is that they're kind of all just put in this black box, and you don't really know about it, and it can then scale back or scale forward depending on your need.
And so the other thing that we wanted to talk about is that in addition to having all of those things in the background, it also allows for people to own and maintain their various services in the ways that they think will be best for their application. So one apprehension that some developers might have for Elastic Beanstalk is that they don't want to give up control over their application. But the great thing about Elastic Beanstalk is that it allows for us to actually bring in different technologies and components from the AWS service catalog in order to make our application as effective as possible. So a couple of examples, maybe they bring in a CloudFront component or a Lambda component. If we want to start using Lambda functions, Elastic Beanstalk will provide us with the flexibility to do that, as well as use various other additional services. So essentially what it does is even though we handle and add different components, it just simply maintains those components moving forward so that they connect in such a way that will allow for application to run at optimum efficiency.
So in summary, Elastic Beanstalk helps developers more conveniently write code without having to worry about the operations or the back end, without having to worry about configurations. And they can do this happily, as you can see the smile on his face. So they essentially just can write the code, and it will be processed through the configurations that they originally created for in Elastic Beanstalk. So in summary, Elastic Beanstalk really helps developers have much more of a successful and more simple job. The hype cycle for Elastic Beanstalk has different aspects. There are different parts of Elastic Beanstalk that are in the hype cycle. You have auto scaling, which you see is the trough of disillusionment and almost in the slope of enlightenment. You have platform as a service and database platform as a service that are up there in slope of enlightenment and plateau of productivity. So at this time, Elastic Beanstalk is really at mostly at slope of enlightenment and is really effective, and most people are including it in their IT services as very effectively. We just wanted to go through a few quotes from verified users that basically prove that Elastic Beanstalk is reliable and has worked for big companies and has worked for the users. Here's one quote from a verified Elastic Beanstalk user: "The speed and reliability are top notch, and I would recommend it over products such as Heroku." Another quote from Gareth: "We had an hour of downtime in the last year, which includes 45 minutes of planned downtime, which means we have lost 15 minutes unplanned in the last year. That's an uptime of 99.997%, which is awesome." And then Stig: "We were able to run economically on day-to-day traffic, but scale horizontally when necessary for biannual sales, when traffic would be orders of magnitude higher than usual for a few weeks without wasting resources the rest of the year." So these three quotes definitely are evidence of the efficiency of Elastic Beanstalk and really show that it's something that is very useful if you use it correctly.
This junior core group is a lot happier using Elastic Beanstalk because they haven't had to do any of the deploying, managing, or scaling of the backend infrastructure themselves. Elastic Beanstalk has taken care of all of that for them. This has allowed the junior core group to be able to focus on their code, on the user experience, and most importantly, on the business benefit that it'll bring the company that they're presenting to. It also will give them a lot more time to spend doing other things, such as watching Stranger Things.
We're grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for letting us explain a little bit of Elastic Beanstalk. And if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of one of us. Thank you.